Have you ever finished a seemingly normal conversation feeling like you were losing your mind? You might have just been talking about plans for the evening, but somehow you ended up feeling guilty, stupid, and completely broken. If that sounds familiar, chances are you've encountered a master manipulator. Today, we're going to arm you with knowledge. We're breaking down the 20 most common phrases narcissists and manipulators use to control you. These aren't just words, they are psychological weapons. By the end of this video, you will learn to recognize these verbal traps and finally be able to defend yourself. Ready for the truth that might just change every relationship you have? Let's dive in. Before we get to the specific phrases, let's understand why they are so incredibly effective. Manipulation isn't always shouting or direct threats. Most often, it's a quiet, insidious poison that drips into your consciousness day after day. Narcissists and manipulators are masters of reality distortion. Their main goal is to erode your confidence in yourself, your feelings, and even your own memory. They create a world where you are always wrong and they are always the victim or the hero. This process is called gaslighting. They force you to question the validity of your own perception. And when you lose the ground beneath your feet, you become incredibly easy to control. That's why knowing their signature phrases is like holding a flashlight in a dark room. It won't get rid of the monsters, but it will help you see them clearly. So, the first and perhaps the most common phrase you'll hear is, "You're overreacting," or its close variation, "You're too sensitive." Heard that before? This is a classic example of invalidating your feelings. Imagine this scenario. Your partner forgets a date that was really important to you. You're naturally upset, and you tell them exactly how you feel. Instead of an apology, what you hear is, "Come on, it was just one day. Why are you so worked up? You're blowing this way out of proportion." This is where the shift occurs. Your completely normal, valid reaction to being hurt is suddenly reframed as inappropriate, as if it is entirely your personal problem. A manipulator doesn't want to take responsibility for their actions. It is much easier for them to convince you that something is wrong with you than it is to admit their own mistake. The goal is to make you ashamed of your emotions and guarantee that in the future you stay silent about anything that truly hurts you. Remember this: your feelings are always valid. If you are hurting, you are hurting. Full stop. The next phrase is a masterpiece of passive aggression. "I'm sorry you feel that way." Listen closely. This is not an apology. It is pure deflection, a subtle way to shift the blame entirely onto you. A genuine apology sounds like, "I'm sorry I was wrong for saying or doing that." The phrase, "I'm sorry you feel that way," actually means, "I didn't do anything wrong, you just have a problem with your own perception." For example, imagine someone makes a biting or offensive joke at your expense. When you address it, that's the apology you receive. They are essentially telling you, "It's not my fault you're so sensitive." This maneuver allows the manipulator to save face, keeping them firmly cemented as the good guy. Meanwhile, you are left with your initial hurt, plus the added guilt for daring to be offended in the first place. It is a calculated, subtle method used to make you doubt the legitimacy of your own reactions and ultimately to stop trusting yourself. This is the heavy artillery of gaslighting. This keep the classic, "I never said that." This line directly attacks your confidence in your own memory. You distinctly remember your partner promising last week to help you with your project on Saturday. But when Saturday arrives, he has made entirely different plans. When you bring up his promise, he looks at you with genuine surprise and asks, "What? I didn't say that. You must have imagined it." And he delivers this line with such conviction that for a split second, you genuinely start to doubt yourself. Did I really make that up? Did I misunderstand what was agreed? The manipulator is using this technique specifically to completely disorient you. Once you stop trusting your own memory, you become totally reliant on their version of events. It is a profoundly powerful control mechanism that slowly erases your sense of self and replaces it with a convenient construct, one that only serves the manipulator. Let's move on to the classic manipulation technique disguised as concern. "I only want what's best for you," or the infamous, "this is all for your own good." This phrase is frequently weaponized to justify total control or aggressive, unsolicited criticism. Imagine a friend constantly tearing down your choices, your clothes, your job, your partner, while insisting, "I'm only telling you this as a friend, I just want to see you succeed." Or perhaps you have parents who micromanage the life of an adult child, framing it purely as loving concern, but beneath this mask, what truly hides is a deep desire for power and control. The manipulator tries to force their vision of the right life onto you, completely ignoring your own genuine desires and emotional needs. If you dare to push back, you are instantly slammed with accusations of being ungrateful. After all, they are only trying to help, and you are clearly incapable of appreciating it. This creates a devastating trap, one that's extremely difficult to escape without feeling like an absolutely terrible person. One of the most potent emotional traps is that devastating guilt-tripping phrase, "after everything I've done for you." With this line, the manipulator turns all of their past actions, even the most mundane ones, into an eternal, unpaid debt. A mother might use it on a child who wants to move to another city. A husband might say it to his wife if she decides to take a professional development course instead of spending the evening with him. Essentially, you are being presented with a bill for absolutely everything, for their care, for gifts, for the time they invested. Any attempt you make to live your own life or prioritize your own interests will be immediately framed as the height of ingratitude. The ultimate goal is to tether you to them with guilt, making you compliant and forever obligated. They want you to feel like you owe them perpetually, and the only way to pay off that debt is to constantly do exactly what the manipulator wants. Here's another nail in the coffin of your mental clarity, the phrase, "you're seeing things." This phrase is the sly younger sibling of the complete denial, "I never said that." It's much more subtle and insidious. It doesn't deny that an event occurred entirely, but it systematically invalidates your personal interpretation of it. For instance, you notice your partner openly flirting with someone at a party. When you confront them, they reply, "You're imagining things. We were just having a friendly chat. You're seeing things that simply aren't there." Or perhaps your boss makes a clearly snide remark aimed at you in front of the whole department, but later, in private, they dismiss it. It was just a joke. You misread the situation completely. This phrase forces you to believe that you are incorrectly interpreting reality, that you are oversensitive, jealous, or paranoid. Over time, you stop trusting your own intuition and instincts, which are, in fact, your primary defense mechanism. Next, we look at the phrases specifically designed to destroy your self-esteem. "No one else will ever love you," or "who would ever want you?" This is blatant verbal aggression, aimed at convincing you that you are worthless, and that the manipulator is somehow unique or superior. They position themselves as the only person on earth capable of tolerating your flaws or shortcomings. This is done specifically so that you fear leaving them. The mere thought of ending the relationship should cause you panic. The manipulator crafts the illusion that stepping outside this relationship means facing nothing but utter loneliness. They convince you that you will be unwanted. This technique creates a powerful dependency. You begin clinging to this person not out of genuine love, but purely out of fear. You are terrified of being alone because you've internalized the belief that you are fundamentally broken. This is a lie. The sole purpose of this deception is to gain complete control over you through sustained fear. The next item on our list is the classic act of blame shifting. "You provoked me." This is the phrase you often hear after a fit of rage, verbal abuse, or even physical violence. The manipulator commits an unacceptable act and then declares that you are the one to blame. Examples include, "If you hadn't argued with me, I wouldn't have yelled," or "You brought this on yourself with your own behavior." In this framing, the aggressor transforms into a victim of circumstance, someone who was pushed too far, while the true victim is assigned all the blame. This is a devastating reversal of reality. Not only does it strip the manipulator of any responsibility, but it forces the victim to internalize the aggressor's terrible behavior and search for the cause within themselves. This leads to self-recrimination and desperate attempts to behave better so as not to provoke the aggressor, a feat that is, tragically, impossible. Here's the classic ultimatum dressed up as affection. If you truly loved me, you would, followed by the manipulator's specific demands: ditch your friends, quit your job, or give me the password to your phone. This is an insidious tactic. Love, which should be unconditional, is immediately turned into a bargaining chip. You are given a condition: do what I want, and only then will I believe your love is real. Refusing to meet the demand is automatically equated with a lack of genuine feelings. This puts you in an impossible situation. You are forced to either betray your principles and sacrifice your interests just to prove your love, or suffer the heavy guilt that you don't love enough. Real love doesn't demand proof through sacrifice. It's built on respect and acceptance. Let's move on to the shield phrase often used to cover up insults. "I was just joking. Don't you have a sense of humor?" This is what happens when a manipulator says something hurtful, cruel, or degrading, and then, the moment they see your reaction, they hide behind the guise of a joke. This maneuver allows them to achieve two things. First, they get to vent their aggression, and second, they manage to paint you as a fool who can't handle a little harmless banter. He landed the jab, and the instant you showed that it hurt, he immediately accused you of lacking the ability to be light-hearted or self-deprecating. The result is that you feel not only humiliated by the joke itself, but also stupid for having misinterpreted or overreacted to it. This is an incredibly convenient position for the manipulator. They can throw out any nasty comment they like, and any attempt you make to defend yourself will immediately be shut down by the simple argument, "It was just a joke." The next tactic is designed for your isolation. It relies on phrases like, "everyone thinks that about you," or "even my friends agree you're acting weird." The manipulator is trying to create the illusion that their dissatisfaction isn't personal, that there is a wider public opinion or consensus against you. By referencing these anonymous everyone, they attempt to make their criticism seem more objective and weighty. You might hear lines such as, "everyone noticed you put on weight," or "everyone agrees that haircut doesn't suit you." The goal is to make you feel isolated in your views, wrong, and judged by the entire world. This severely undermines your confidence, forcing you to rely more heavily on the manipulator's judgment as they position themselves as the messenger delivering the truth from the majority. In reality, these everyone are usually just products of their imagination, a convenient, fabricated tool used solely to ramp up the pressure. Here's a classic phrase designed to shut you down: "Let's not make a mountain out of a molehill." This is pulled out whenever you try to discuss an issue that genuinely bothers you, but the manipulator deems it insignificant. Essentially, it's just another way to completely invalidate your feelings. You might say, "It upsets me when you don't answer my messages for hours." And the response you get is, "Oh, come on, let's not blow this out of proportion. I was busy." Your feelings, your anxiety, your need for basic connection, all of this is instantly labeled as the molehill. And you, by extension, are framed as someone who is simply prone to dramatic behavior. This is a highly effective tactic for shutting down any conversation the manipulator finds uncomfortable. They simply refuse to acknowledge the problem's existence, writing it off as irrelevant and dismissing you as hysterical. A phrase very similar to the last one but carrying a different nuance is, "You're exaggerating." While the phrase "don't make a mountain out of a molehill" addresses the scale of the problem, "you're exaggerating" targets your emotional reaction directly. Essentially, this statement questions the appropriateness of your entire response to the situation. Imagine, for example, you are furious because your colleague stole your idea and took the credit. You share this frustration with a manipulative friend who then replies, "Are you sure he did it on purpose? I think you might be blowing the scale of this problem way out of proportion." Instead of receiving support, you are now faced with doubt about your ability to correctly assess the situation. The underlying message from the manipulator is, your feelings are excessive and disproportionate to reality. When you constantly hear this, you start to suppress your emotions, fearing you will seem irrational or unstable, eventually causing you to lose contact with your authentic self. This phrase is the epitome of toxic romanticization. I act this way because I love you so much, or I'm jealous because I'm afraid of losing you. In this scenario, any destructive behavior, total control, jealousy, setting limits, is excused by the sheer intensity of their feelings. The manipulator breaches your social media accounts and then claims it's proof of their overwhelming love. They forbid you from seeing your friends because they are terrified of losing you. This is an incredibly dangerous trap, especially for people who grew up believing that passion and drama like those seen in romantic movies are the true hallmarks of love. In reality, love is about trust, respect, and freedom. Control, jealousy, and boundary violations are simply red flags signaling deep insecurity and the desire to possess another person like property. That's not love. That's pure selfishness and possessiveness. A common tactic used within the idealization devaluation cycle is the phrase, "You weren't like this before." The manipulator deploys this line whenever you start asserting yourself, setting boundaries, or doing anything that challenges their control. They are essentially trying to force you back into that ideal image they constructed during the relationship's initial idealization phase. The specific wording might be, "You used to be so easygoing and fun, but now you're constantly complaining about something." What they really mean is, "You used to be compliant and obedient, but now you're pushing back and demanding respect, and I hate that." The goal is simple, to make you feel guilty for changing for the worse, compelling you to revert to the old behavioral pattern that suits them. They aren't truly nostalgic for you, they are nostalgic for their fantasy of you, and they demand that you conform to it. This is a classic passive-aggressive maneuver to dodge responsibility, often delivered with the phrase, "Fine, do what you want." The phrase is usually uttered with an air of martyrdom, as if they're doing you a massive favor. Say you're wrestling with a big decision, like going back to school or changing careers. You consult your partner, but instead of engaging in a real discussion, they just toss out the line, "Do whatever you want." On the surface, it sounds like they're granting you freedom of choice. But what they're really doing is shedding all responsibility for the outcome, while simultaneously dropping a subtle hint that they disapprove of your decision. If you succeed, don't expect them to celebrate with you, but if you fail, they will eagerly jump in with a smug, "I told you so." It's a mechanism to stay uninvolved and unsupportive, yet still keep the door open for future criticism and blame. It's not permission, it's quiet condemnation. Here is a very simple yet highly effective tactic for dodging a conversation. Let's just not talk about this right now. You're trying to discuss something important, something that's truly bothering you, but the manipulator keeps putting the conversation off indefinitely. Their excuses include, "I'm tired," "The timing is wrong," or "We can talk about it later." And that later never arrives. This tactic is known as stonewalling. The manipulator is essentially refusing to engage in any meaningful dialogue whatsoever. Why is this so effective? Because the problem matters to you, you desperately want a resolution, and you are left perpetually stuck in limbo. Meanwhile, they keep you dangling on a hook, completely controlling if and when the discussion will ever happen. They decide the time, the topic, and the conditions of any discussion. This effectively silences you in the relationship, signaling that your feelings and concerns hold no weight for them. They will only engage in conversations that are convenient for the Beichtungstunde. Now let's talk about covert emotional blackmail. It often starts with the phrase, "Don't tell anyone I told you this," but this phrase is the gateway to gossip and intrigue. The manipulator feeds you negative information about a third party, often a mutual acquaintance, under the guise of absolute secrecy. The goal of this technique, known as triangulation, is to deliberately drive a wedge between you and your relationships with others. They either turn you against another person or, conversely, they relay supposedly negative comments that others have made about you. In doing so, they position themselves as the only reliable source of information, an indispensable link in your social circle. They gain control over the flow of information and, consequently, your relationships with everyone around you. The manipulator sows distrust and discord, all while remaining at the center of the drama, quietly pulling the strings. Ultimately, this is a powerful tactic designed to isolate you and drastically increase their perceived importance in your life. Here is another phrase that puts the manipulator on a pedestal while completely tearing you down. I'm the only one who tells you the truth. He crafts the image of a blunt, honest truth-teller, someone who, unlike all those hypocrites around you, isn't afraid to deliver the uncomfortable truth straight to your face. Of course, this truth is always criticism aimed directly at you. He might say something like, "Your friends will flatter you, but I'm the only one who will tell you that dress actually makes you look heavy." By framing his criticism as exclusive honesty, he immediately invalidates the opinions of everyone else in your life and elevates himself above them. He becomes the sole arbiter of truth. This forces you to doubt the support of your loved ones and place increasing trust in the manipulator's perspective, which in reality is nothing more than his method of self-validation and control at your expense. And here is the 20th phrase, which effectively closes this toxic loop. You misunderstood me. This is the ultimate way to evade responsibility for anything they say. The person says something ambiguous or perhaps frankly offensive. When you react to it, they don't apologize or take their words back. Instead, they accuse you of being incapable of understanding them correctly. They'll say, "But that's not what I meant. You completely twisted my words." The responsibility for communication is completely shifted onto you. It's not that they articulated their thought poorly, it's that you failed to grasp it. This tactic allows the manipulator to say absolutely anything they want and, at any moment, retract their statement by simply referencing your stupidity or your flawed character. Ultimately, you begin to fear trusting your own perception. You constantly second-guess yourself, doubting whether you understood the situation correctly. Here they are, 20 key phrases, 20 psychological weapons manipulators use to try and break you down. You're overreacting. I'm sorry you feel that way. I never said that. Behind every single one of these phrases lies a desire to control you, shirk responsibility, and utterly destroy your self-belief. The most crucial takeaway is this: it's not about you. Your feelings are valid, your memory is fine, your reaction is completely justified. Recognizing these phrases is the first and most essential step towards liberation. It's like flipping the light switch in a dark room. Now you see the reality of what's happening. You are no longer the victim. You are someone who knows the rules of this toxic game and can walk away from it. Thank you for watching this video until the very end. If you found this information helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our future deep dives. Now, a question for you. Which of these phrases have you heard most frequently in your own life? Or perhaps there's a phrase we missed that is also a powerful weapon in a manipulator's arsenal. Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might just help someone else realize that they are not alone.